All right, thank you so much. You know what? Let's have all the guys stand up this time. You know, I believe in equality. Okay. Good-looking, handsome men. Good to have you. And then all the women. All the women, stand up, please, as well. Stand, guys, stay up. And you know what? I think that the air squat thing is a good idea. Let's do 5 today, just to get a little energy in, because I know we've been sitting here all morning. This is going to be my talk today. Is just going to be all fitness related. All right, very cool. Go ahead and sit down. So, hi everyone, I'm Johnny FD. I've been a nomad for over 10 years. I left the US in 2008. I had a corporate job. I had everything going for me. I did everything I was supposed to do. I graduated university with honors, had a Lexus, had a Porsche, I had cool clothes, go to the bars, all that stuff. None of it really made me happy. So in 2008, quit my job, quit everything, moved to Thailand, and this talk is kind of the full circle, where as someone like in the beginning, we didn't have Nomad Base, we didn't have this community, we didn't have blogs, we didn't have podcasts. It was really hard to figure out. So now I feel very fortunate that we can share this knowledge with each other. Because I screwed up so many times in my life. And I think that's why I always want to share and let people learn from my lessons, because I don't want anyone to go through the same thing. I wish this info was out there when I got started. I'm curious, who here is kind of just starting out with your nomad journey? Can you raise your hands? All right, so quite a bit of people. And is anyone here kind of like, you feel like you're kind of towards the end where you kind of want a home base, you kind of want to settle down a little bit more, you kind of want to slow down when traveling? Also a lot of people, all right? So hopefully the lessons I've learned over the last decade or so, and also today's talk, will help both of you. Digital nomadism saved my life. It's a bit exaggerated, but it did help me tremendously, especially these last couple months when my life was completely turned up and down. I was so used to living carry-on only out of a bag, kind of like Dean and a lot of nomad kind of minimalists. Who here actually travels carry-on only? Can you raise your hands? These people have discovered the ultimate travel hack, the life hack. For anyone who hasn't tried it yet, it's hard. I know it's hard to kind of give up things and be like, but I need this, I need this. But I guarantee you, once you start doing it, you realize how free you are. And the other kind of trick to it is if you have enough money where you can just kind of buy, and things aren't even expensive, like just buy the new big thing of toothpaste, or buy the new body wash, or buy some new t-shirts wherever you go, it really makes your life so much easier. Because as Fight Club taught us, the things we own end up owning us. And it's so true, it's so damn true. So having the experience of traveling as a minimalist digital nomad, sleeping kind of anywhere, not knowing what was next, but also the skills I learned building businesses, working online, marketing, networking, it saved me financially, physically, and mentally. But let's kind of rewind a bit. So in 2008, moved to Thailand, but I was doing scuba diving and Muay Thai for the first 5 years, thinking this is kind of the path I want to go on. But around that time, I started realizing, you know what, I'm not enjoying waking up on these beautiful beaches anymore. I'm not enjoying diving anymore. I'm not enjoying doing the sport I liked. I don't want to be that old British guy who just complains every day and just, I don't want to be here, all right? And that's when I was like, okay, I either need to move back to the US or I need to learn how to earn money online. And this is before, freelancing was popular, remote work was popular, there was any of this info. So I kind of accidentally stumbled into becoming a nomad. My first business was on Amazon. I had some Kindle books. But then throughout the years, I had this weird kind of obsession with just trying different things. Like every time you hear about a new business, whether it's on Amazon or dropshipping or affiliate marketing or Udemy or coaching or programming, app making, whatever it is, I wanted to try all of them. So I would spend 6 months learning something, building it, and then having it get profitable and then automating it. And at some point, I had probably 10 plus businesses, all kind of on this cool passive income dream that we all inspire for. What I have learned though since then is there's no real such thing as passive income. If you're not logging into accounts and growing the business, it is slowly dying. But what I also learned from it is pretty much everything works. Like all the businesses that you'll hear about this week from all the different speakers, all these things you heard on the different podcasts, like they almost all work, but they all have downsides. None of them are easy, none of them are overnight, and they all are a real business and you have to treat it that way. But at my kind of high point, I was making $30,000 a month. And it blew my mind because I never thought that would ever be possible. My parents combined never made $30,000 in a year. And by the kind of end of my decade journey, I decided that's it, I'm done. I sold my businesses, and one kind of business hack is whenever you're building something, ask yourself, is this something that I can sell later on? Whether it's physical products or online products, whatever it is. If the day you quit, you lose everything, then you really just relied on the money you made during that time. But if it's something that is an asset that you can sell to someone else, you can get 2 or 3 years of future profits now for passing that on. And that's kind of a huge hack. The second big hack is saving and investing most of what you make. As nomads, we're really lucky that cost of living are actually pretty low. I mean, sure, if you're flying, all the time, flying a business class and staying in expensive places, it's more expensive than living at home. But, if you spend 2 or 3 months in each location, you get like a local apartment, you're, being a minimalist, life's pretty cheap. I flew here, for $13 from Krakow, even though my Airbnb was kind of expensive due to the situation. All in, if you're spending $600 to $1,000 a month, including your bills, it's probably actually cheaper than even just living at home. So if you're able to grow your income while keeping your costs low, it's actually relatively easy to save, 50% or even, in my case, 80% of everything you earn, especially all the tax hacks and everything that we get from being location independent. So that is what really set me up. But I was tired. 10 years, I went to all the countries I wanted to go to. I stopped enjoying sunsets, believe it or not. I remember the moment I realized this is done is I was on, I think, Koh Phangan, and it was my friend from the US had come visit me, and he was like, "Oh my God, Johnny, stop. And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Look at this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he's like, "No, Johnny, look at it. Look how amazing the sunset is." And I was like, "Yeah, I've seen it like 1,000 times." And that's when I realized I gotta do something else. I had reached all my financial goals. I had went everywhere I wanted to go. And on February 24th, 2021, I woke up and I realized I was a US dollar millionaire. I counted up the money I had in my investment accounts, my savings accounts, and in cash. And I was like, what the? Like, I knew that was my goal, but I never thought it'd be possible. Now I'm curious, like with the raising hands, who here is like, wow, $1 million is a lot of money. That's kind of a big goal, a big dream that can buy a lot of things, right? And who here thinks, you know what, $1 million isn't what it used to be. You can't actually buy what it did. It can't really set you for life. You still have to work. And the thing is, both of you are correct. On one hand, we need to be, very appreciative that all of us in this room, have a very legitimate chance of, 100% being millionaires in our lifetimes. The fact that we all, speak an international language, like English, the fact that we all, are internet capable, that we have this connection, this knowledge, there's no reason why all of us can't be a millionaire one day. And it can buy a lot, it can change a lot. It can really, you can do a lot of good things with it. But at the same time, you're right. Like, it really doesn't buy that much. I thought about it, and I was like, okay, yeah, should I just move back to San Francisco where I'm from and buy a house and buy a car and have a normal life? No, I couldn't even afford to buy a house without taking a 30-year mortgage. Or if I did buy one, that's it. Like, how am I gonna pay property tax or bills? I could buy this cool car, but then what? The maintenance costs, the depreciation after 5 years, like, what is this, $500,000 car worth? Nothing, all right? So on one hand, I had realized I had come a long way since when I started this nomad journey. In 2013, when I really started my first business, I was down to $300 in my total net worth. And it sucked. I didn't want to go back and work the 9 to 5 again. But at the same time, when I became a millionaire, I was like, now what? And COVID lockdowns actually really changed me. I'm sure it changed everyone in the world. Some for the better, some for the worse. A lot of people suffered through it. But it gave me time to think about what was really important, what I wanted. And I had decided, I want to settle down. I want a home base. I wanted something besides the US passport to allow me to continue living abroad or traveling. I never really talked about this, but even though I'm born and raised in San Francisco, I'm American, I have a US passport, I never really felt that comfortable there. Like, I never really felt like I belonged, I traveled a little bit in the US, but it was never a place that I can see myself really 100%, fitting in, like, fuck yeah, America, Like, the mentality is different, it's just like, and then there's no perfect country, but for me, it was just not a place that I saw myself living for the rest of my life and growing old. Ironically, Ukraine was. And it's hard to explain for anyone who's never been there. And also, I'm sure it's not for everyone. But for me, it was kind of this perfect mix of the West and the East. Literally, they are basically in the center of, on one side you have Asia, one side you have Western Europe. And little things like everybody takes off their shoes when they go into someone's house. In the US, that would drive me crazy when people wouldn't do that. People have really solid relationships with their grandparents, their babushkas, and that's something I really enjoyed when I grew up. My grandparents all died when I was very young, and I never really had that. So I just had this connection. It was somebody had said over breakfast that, sometimes you go somewhere and you just have this connection and you can't really explain why. What helped was there was an easy path to permanent residency, basically a green card. I know they have it in more, kind of desirable countries, like Portugal has a great one. It starts around 280,000 euros, it goes up to $500,000, and you get an EU, permanent residency, which is great. Turkey also had one for about 250,000, and last year, before their economy collapsed, it seemed like a good place to buy. But in Ukraine, it was only $100,000. I was like, oh, that's not too bad. You can invest it and you can use it to buy real estate or whatever it is. Let's do that. So I went through the process to get the investor visa, all that stuff. And I bought an apartment here in the center of Kyiv. This is the building I live in. I probably spent about a third of my money. At first I thought, I was like, I'm just gonna spend 100 grand exactly. Turns out there was nothing that I wanted for exactly that much. And then when you factor in the cost of lawyers and closing costs and all this other stuff, and then renovating the place, and then me finding a second place I really liked and bought as well, it ended up being about a third of everything I had. But I was invested. I was like, this is it. This is gonna be my home. Luckily, I was smart enough to also put a third into a retirement account that I can't touch. I can't touch it until I'm 59 and a half, at least without huge penalties, which my accountant, Grace, probably would never let me do. So that money is kind of tucked away, but I know that's kind of the security of growing old and not having to worry about, am I ever gonna be able to survive? Because as an American, we need to pay into the Social Security fund for 10 years, and I didn't work in the US for 10 years. Also, I don't know if it's still gonna be around 10 years from now. Like, I don't really trust our government to take care of us when we're older. And this is kind of a life lesson number 2 is we need to be self-reliant in our old age. You know, the days of having a government pension or a work pension, I don't think it's gonna be around by the time all of us are gonna retire. And if it wasn't for me putting a third of it in there, I wouldn't feel the stability that I do now. And my parents, they didn't do it. You know, I mean, I don't think they could have. They barely were able to afford, living in the U.S. in the first place. So they definitely weren't thinking about putting, 50 or 80% of their income into investments. They were basically just trying to put food on the table. And I decided, you know what, let me take care of them. They were getting old. I think, they were 65 at the time, but my mom was still waitressing, and standing, and she was getting like foot problems. My dad was still driving a taxi on the weekends, and I was like, just stop. Like, stop doing it. Let me just take care of you guys. So, I basically paid all their expenses the last couple years, and I gave them another big chunk to put away and say, like, this is yours, stop working. I also committed to paying their property tax for the next 10 years. Because in the US, and probably in a lot of countries, even though we own our homes, if we don't pay that huge tax every year or every month, they just take it back from you. So you don't really own it. So that's kind of where the money went. And I probably lost a lot more with the Ukrainian hryvnia crashing and all these other things happening. But basically, I had to start over. This was the apartment that I had bought and I spent the last year of my life pouring my heart and soul into renovating. It's over 100 years old, and it kind of looked like this when I got it. And I spent every day, with the contractors, the designers, restoring these beautiful 100-year-old ceilings, exposing the old brick wall and taking off the wallpaper, redoing the floors, sanding all the original doors. It would have been so much easier and cheaper just to get rid of all of that and just put in laminates and new wallpaper or something, but it was like a pride. And I want to warn everyone, if you value minimalism and being able to travel and freedom and having no responsibilities and extra money in your bank account, don't buy a house. It is the worst investment you can make financially. Because even the people who end up making a lot from their house, they don't really put in the hours that the sweat equity they put in, the fact that they probably would have made the same if they just put that money into almost anything else. But what it does do is it ties you to place, it puts your soul into a place. And exactly on the same freaking day after I became a millionaire, 1 year later, Russia takes it all from me. And not just from me, from 44 million Ukrainians around the world. I didn't think it would happen. If you asked me 1 month earlier, I said, no, Putin's not crazy enough to attack a free country. There's no way they're gonna come bomb Kyiv. It's 2022. This isn't the 1800s. It's not like these history books we read. I was like, there's zero chance. I even went on RT America a month before saying, yeah, we're not worried here in Kyiv. Everything is normal. Like none of us think Russia's going to attack. There's no way Russia's going to attack. And it was the worst judgment call of my life. And I fucked up. All right. I went from being a millionaire, sleeping in the house that I helped build with 10 years of me slaving away, saving every penny, investing it, to sleeping in a refugee center with 500 other people with the lights completely bright all night on these donated cots. I went from having a house full of furniture that I had picked out, that I had chose every little detail, to living here and being a nomad and minimalist once again. All I was able to take with me was that same duffel bag that I had traveled with the last 5 years. Probably 60 liters worth of things. And Even then, with no stability, not knowing what's going to happen financially, physically, mentally, I knew I was still okay. Because being a nomad for so many years had prepared me for this. I was used to changing countries all the time. I was used to sleeping in random uncomfortable places. I was used to traveling on a budget. I was used to working remotely and earning online. But unfortunately, we are a minority. Even though there's 274 people here in this room, even though our communities are around the world, we're really still a very tiny portion of the population. And the vast majority of Ukrainians were uprooted from their homes without any notice. So I decided I'm gonna dedicate as long as it takes to help in whatever I can. And luckily, with all the skills I had learned with digital marketing and Photoshop and content creation and SEO and all this stuff, I was like, you know what? Let me put this to good. So I went back to Ukraine and I started filming and doing interviews with people who are in these areas that were completely devastated. And for anyone who's a little bit confused about how what the situation is like now, the center of Kyiv, the capital, thank God, is completely, relatively untouched. But it's because the Ukrainian soldiers are smart enough to basically turn it into an island. They destroyed their own bridges, they flooded all the fields around, and that way the Russian forces couldn't get close enough to shell with artillery. A few missiles still came to attack, and unfortunately, lives were lost. But really, it's the outskirts. And to really put it in perspective, think about your hometown where you grew up. The biggest city, your capital, whatever it is. And think of it as that place. Berlin is okay, or Washington is okay, whatever it is. But all the small towns and villages and suburbs around it are completely destroyed. And there is a lot of talk on whose fault it was. Was it NATO expansion? Was the US meddling? Was it the three Nazis that just slipped through? And all those discussions in peacetime, yeah, let's talk about that. I think it's important to talk about these things. But the clear fact is Russia invaded a peaceful country and they started killing everybody. They started killing civilians, they started killing kids, doing things that are unimaginable. And if Russia had never attacked, none of this would have happened. So I've been fundraising for them through my YouTube channel. I've been able to raise already $25,000 through a charity called Razom for Ukraine. Thank you. And they were the best charity I can find that was actually in the ground, because even though it's nice to donate to these bigger charities, unfortunately a lot of that money gets kind of mismanaged, or it just takes a long time. So if you do end up donate to the orphanage that Odis will talk about on Friday, or someone in a charity who's actually on the ground there and not UNICEF or Red Cross or something like that. But I also decided, I know a lot of people in Ukraine still who need money now. They can't wait for any of these organizations to send goods over. I wanted to send them money. I wanted to message every single person I knew that I ever met there, from the coffee shop person to my house cleaner to the person doing my floors, and just say, do you need anything? And if I had any hesitation that they were, that everything wasn't okay, I would just send them $500 or $1,000. And I did this through GoFundMe. And it still boggles my mind that this community that has somehow built through the digital nomad community, as well as on YouTube, I've now raised $39,000 through here as well. And the thing is, what was really nice about this was able to very quickly, literally within seconds or days, go directly to people who needed it. And also, I can pick and choose things that weren't getting attention that I knew were very valuable. So aside from sending food and supplies, humanitarian goods, we also funded these volunteers who needed these EOD kits to safely dismantle mines. And I didn't even think of this until I was filming one day, and one of the soldiers was like, no, don't step on that. And I was like, there's still active mines here, it's a playground. And he's like, yeah, like we don't have the time or energy to do it. And that very day, I went home and I sent $2,000 to a volunteer group. I think they're actually from Sweden that had these skills to fix mines. So the world is coming together, and it's been so amazing. We also helped fund a 4x4 ambulance that's able to go to the front lines of Donetsk and help bring people out. It's been like a new mission, a new goal that I never thought, this remote work stuff would help somehow, push forward. So this photo is taken somewhere, 40 minutes outside of Kyiv in one of these villages that, was standing on this burnt out Russian tank or APC. And this meant so much to me. Not only, holding up the Ukrainian flag and showing our support, knowing that, we have 2 Americans, we have a girl from Holland, but we also have the soldiers who stayed to help. And these guys, they were going into the war zone, not only to defend the country and stop these tanks, which his battalion did, but also bringing food to people who couldn't, get anything during those 2 months. And these berries that he's holding, kalina, it's a very good symbol, because these are berries that could survive the winter in Ukraine, which is not easy. I barely survived it. They were covered in snow, but in the spring, they reemerge, and they're strong, they're good for you, they're full of antioxidants, and they make a great tea. And this really represents the strength and power of Ukraine. And this is why I know Ukraine will win and we'll get through this. So I'm sure, most of us in this room, I've never learned how to say anything in Ukrainian. But today, I want to share this phrase, Ukraina переможе.
Україна переможе.
Україна переможе. Дякую. Okay. And this phrase, I think, it's important to learn because, unfortunately, a lot of people in Ukraine think they're alone. They think no one cares about them. They think that, they're just this kind of relatively small country in the hands of this, big bad tyrant who's just doing whatever they want. And, a lot of people in Ukraine, still, don't speak English, and they don't realize how supportive the world is. And they don't realize that the whole world wants them to have their freedom. They want them to have their lives. They want them to be able to return home safely. So that's why I wanted to share this word and a message to stand with Ukraine. I'll be okay. I survived learning all these things, throughout the years of being a nomad, even though I wanted to just, not quit, but at least take a break and enjoy a new chapter in my life. This war has forced me to go back to being a minimalist digital nomad. And I'll get through it. So don't worry about me. Let's worry about the people who haven't had, the luck of growing up in countries that we grew up, learning these international languages, maybe as a kid, being able to work remotely and earn, US dollars or euros. Let's stand with Ukraine. Thank you, guys. And one easy way we can do this is just taking a photo and just showing that we, from all around the world, 274 nomads are with Ukraine. Ukraina
Переможе!
переможе! Ukraina переможе! Ukraina переможе! Дякую.
Thank you.